There's a concept in cognitive psychology known as audience design that politicians use all the time. Basically what it means is that the direct target of your speech isn't necessarily the intended audience of your speech. The classic example from the psychological literature is when a mother tells a baby, "Hey, wouldn't you like it if your dad changed your diapers today?" She's obviously not really speaking to the baby. The baby can't understand. The baby doesn't care who changes its diaper. She's speaking to the father while addressing the baby. The political example here is when politicians are speaking to a reporter but are really addressing their voters or addressing other politicians through their answers to questions. When public officials are speaking to the press, it's important to note who the actual audience is. Is this your base? Are you speaking to the core of your party? Are you speaking to the American people broadly? Are you speaking to other politicians? Who are you aiming your remarks at? And that will show the influence, and it will show exactly how you're crafting these remarks. There are a few different strategies politicians can engage in with the media as a way of avoiding accountability for their words or testing the waters before fully committing to a policy. The first is what we call a trial balloon. This is when someone like the president or has his press secretary or a low-level official talk about something the president might do and then see how the public reacts. If the public reacts positively, then the president comes out in favor of it. If not, he blames his press secretary for talking out of term and pretends it never happens. Think about how Trump has done this with Sean Spicer quite a bit. Spicer will say something, Trump will deny it later, you see conflict, you see fights between the branches, you don't really know what's going on, and it helps insulate the White House from some negative publicity. The story becomes a process one rather than about the policy itself. The next strategy is a news leak, which is when politicians share news with a reporter undercover without divulging their identity, or at least not allowing the reporter to divulge their identity to the larger audience. They share the story as a way of embarrassing other people, or as a way of getting a story out earlier, or for whatever other reason they want the news out there anonymously. The final type I want to talk about is what's called an inoculation leak. This is when politicians know a bad story about them is going to come out, and they leak it to the press first as a way of trying to control this story. The goal here is to try and have favorable news outlets cover the story, or to try and make sure the spin of the story is positive for the politician. Keep it under your control as long as possible before it spins out of control. These are just a few ways that politicians manipulate the media, some that are highlighted by the book I wanted to bring up. But think about the relationship between reporters and politicians, different reporters and politicians, different types of media, things like that, and how this all works whenever you watch news stories, especially in the era of fake news and all these things, this debate between the left and the right and the alt-right. Think about how these things work. Think about how the source matters, how different politicians go to different audiences. All these types of things craft the world you look at. So be very careful and really think about these things critically as you look forward.